Max Verstappen conquered Monza in dominant fashion, completing what many are calling Red Bull's remarkable turnaround after months of struggling to match McLaren's pace. This wasn't just any victory, it was Verstappen's third win of the season and his first since May, achieved with an all-time record around the Temple of Speed. What made this performance so impressive was how Verstappen handled the early pressure. Starting from pole, he had to relinquish his race lead to Lando Norris on lap 2 after cutting the corner in turn 1, lap 1. But it was short-lived as he fought back for it on lap 4, retaking the lead. That move at turn 1 was textbook Verstappen. Aggressive but calculated, the kind of overtake that sets the tone for an entire race. The result appears to be a shot in the arm for technical director Pierre Wache, who had the honour of joining Verstappen on the podium and was starting to come under pressure after the team's slide in performance. Red Bull's turnaround seems to stem from a fundamental change in their setup philosophy, and the rewards are finally starting to show. Verstappen finished over 19 seconds clear of Lando Norris at Monza. That's not just winning, that's making a statement. When your closest competitors are McLaren, who've been the class of the field this season, such a margin is genuinely shocking. McLaren's team orders drama that has everyone from fans to fellow drivers shaking their heads in disbelief. This controversy cuts to the heart of modern Formula One team management and championship politics. The situation unfolded in the closing stages when both McLaren drivers were running long on their medium tyres, hoping for a safety car that never came. This was a calculated gamble by McLaren. Their MCL 39 car design allows them to nurse far more life out of their tyres than their competitors, giving them strategic flexibility that other teams simply don't have. Piastri was told to pit first as the two McLarens pushed the mediums the furthest of any drivers. This wasn't the standard protocol. Normally the leading driver would have strategic priority, but McLaren had a specific concern. Charles Leclerc's Ferrari was lurking behind Piastri in 4th place, and they were worried about the undercut threat. When Norris asked if the team was interested in an undercut, sending the lead car down first, he was told no. This is crucial context. Norris actually questioned the team's decision to pit Piastri first. Here's where it gets messy. Piastri came out of the pits with softs on lap 46, 8.5 seconds ahead of his teammate Norris. When Norris came in on the next lap, disaster struck. A slow stop due to an unsecured front left tyre cost him nearly 6 precious seconds. Norris rejoined the field behind his teammate Piastri, and suddenly McLaren found themselves in an uncomfortable position. McLaren's response? Team orders. Tom Stallard, Piastri's race engineer, delivered the controversial message. Oscar, this is a bit like Hungary last year. We pitted in this order for team reasons. Please let Lando pass and then you're free to race. But here's Piastri's perfectly reasonable response. I mean, we said that a slow pit stop was part of racing, so I don't really get what's changed here, but if you really want to do it, I'll do it. Despite his protest, he complied, but not before making his point crystal clear. The immediate aftermath was telling. Max Verstappen's reaction was perhaps the most revealing. When informed over the radio that the McLaren pair had traded positions, he couldn't contain his laughter, just because of a slow pit stop.
Norris and Piastri have swapped places, Max.
Just because he had a slow stop?
Even the race winner found it amusing, and that speaks volumes about how this decision looked from the outside. The fan reaction has been intense, with social media erupting in criticism of McLaren's decision. Many are pointing to legendary drivers like Sebastian Vettel, Lewis Hamilton, and Michael Schumacher, arguing they would never have complied with such an order. McLaren tried to justify this by comparing it to last year's Hungarian Grand Prix, but that comparison doesn't hold water. The difference there was the power of the undercut at the Hungaroring was significantly greater than it was this year at Monza. Not even in the seconds, we go in the tenths of a second, was how team principal Andrea Stella characterised it. In Hungary 2024, Piastri had held a strong lead over the rest of the field when McLaren opted to call Norris into the pits first in order to cover off a challenge from Lewis Hamilton. That was a strategic necessity. This was correcting a mechanical error at the expense of the driver who did nothing wrong. Norris did not lose position in direct response to the team's decision to pit Piastri first. He lost position because the front left tyre change was slow. And unfortunately for Norris, he made the decision to pit second. The numbers tell the story of how significant this decision was. The move allowed Norris to retake second place to Piastri's third, with the Englishman thus reducing the gap in the championship race from 34 points to 31. If he had finished second, Piastri would have been 37 points clear. That's a 6-point swing in the championship fight. Potentially massive when we're talking about a title race that could go down to the wire. Piastri's lead has now been cut to 31 points over Norris with 9 rounds of the season remaining. Perhaps the most telling reaction came from the race winner himself. When Verstappen was informed over the radio that the McLaren pair had traded positions, he laughed, just because of a slow pit stop? Even Max found it amusing, and that speaks volumes about how this looked from the outside. Mercedes F1 boss Toto Wolff has warned that McLaren has set a precedent that is very difficult to undo after ordering Oscar Piastri to let teammate Lando Norris by in the Italian GP. That's a significant comment from someone who's managed championship winning teams through similar situations. Credit where it's due. Piastri handled this situation with remarkable maturity. After receiving congratulations from team principal Andrea Stella for acceding without fuss to the team's request, a reflective Piastri declared, "I think today was a fair request. Lando qualified ahead, was ahead the whole race, and lost the spot through no fault of his own." He added something particularly insightful. There's a lot of people to protect and a culture to protect outside of just Lando and I. Ultimately, that's a very important thing going forward. That's the perspective of someone thinking about the bigger picture, but it also raises questions about whether McLaren is being fair to their championship leader. Beyond the podium drama, the full top 10 tells a fascinating story of how this race unfolded across the field. Max Verstappen's dominant victory was followed by the McLaren pair of Lando Norris in second and Oscar Piastri in third after their controversial position swap. Charles Leclerc brought the Ferrari home in fourth, but it was a lonely drive for the Monegasque, unable to repeat his magical 2024 Monza victory that sent the Tifosi into raptures. The SF25 simply didn't have the pace to challenge the leading trio, leaving Ferrari fans disappointed on home soil. George Russell secured fifth place for Mercedes, delivering a solid, if unspectacular performance that highlighted the Silver Arrow's continued struggles to match the pace of Red Bull and McLaren. Lewis Hamilton's recovery drive from 10th to 6th was one of the weekend's underrated performances. The 7-time champion carved his way through the field with typical Hamilton precision, making up 4 positions despite starting from the back due to his grid penalty carried over from Zandvoort. 7th through 10th saw a mix of midfield runners capitalising on a relatively clean race, with teams like Williams from Albon or RB from Hadjar for valuable championship points. The attrition rate was remarkably low, with only Fernando Alonso retiring after his suspension failure at Ascari and Nico Hülkenberg failing to even start due to a hydraulic issue discovered during the formation lap. This clean running allowed the natural pace hierarchy to shine through, with the top teams clearly separated from the midfield pack, emphasising just how dominant Verstappen's performance was to gap the field by such margins in modern Formula One's era of close competition. This race has massive implications for the championship fight. Red Bull has shown they're back in the conversation, which could complicate McLaren's season significantly. But the bigger question is about McLaren's internal dynamics. Both Piastri and team principal Andrea Stella said on Sunday that the situation will be discussed and reviewed ahead of the next round of the championship in Azerbaijan. That review is crucial because this decision has created a precedent that could haunt them. The papaya rules that McLaren established to govern their drivers' relationship might need some serious revision. McLaren instituted something it calls papaya rules, which team principal Andrea Stella defined as effectively requesting its drivers race one another cleanly and with the team's greater good at the forefront of their minds. But when mechanical errors start determining championship points through team intervention, those rules become complicated fast. Max Verstappen reminded everyone that reports of his dominance ending were greatly exaggerated. Red Bull's resurgence at Monza was comprehensive. Pole position, fastest lap, race win and a 19-second margin. That's ominous for McLaren as we head into the final stretch of the season. But the real drama was McLaren's decision-making under pressure. While their reasoning has some merit, the optics are terrible, and the precedent it sets is dangerous. This wasn't a call McLaren needed to make, as it's very different to Hungary last year. Championship fights are won and lost on moments like these. McLaren has the fastest car and two exceptional drivers, but if they can't manage the political side of a title fight without controversy, they might hand advantages to their competitors. As we head to Baku, all eyes will be on how McLaren handles the internal dynamics they've created and whether Red Bull can build on this Monza momentum. With 9 races left and a 31-point gap between Piastri and Norris, this championship fight is far from over. That's your Monza debrief. What did you think of McLaren's team orders call? Hit us up on social media and let us know. Until next time, keep the rubber side down.